All right, let's get right into it. We hear about trade wars all the time, right? Fights over steel, cars, aluminum. But what if I told you that one of the biggest cross-border fights right now is over, well, garbage? Yeah, the stuff you throw out every day. It's a story that has pushed two of North America's closest allies right to the edge.
So just take a look at this number, 3.46 million. Let it sit there for a second. What on earth could that be?
That's what it is. 3.46 million tons of garbage that the province of Ontario trucks across the border into Michigan every single year. I mean, to put that into perspective, that's like almost 400 big rig trucks full of trash crossing the border every single day. A constant river of refuse flowing south. It's just staggering.
Now, believe it or not, this has been going on for decades. For Ontario's big cities, it's been a cheap and easy solution to their own landfill problems. But you can probably guess, for the folks in Michigan, it's been a growing source of frustration that has finally hit a breaking point.
And this chart really paints the picture. That Canadian trash, almost all of it from Ontario, makes up about 14.4% of all the waste being buried in Michigan's landfills. For years, people in Michigan have been saying, hey, why has our state become a dumping ground? And honestly, when you look at the numbers, you can see their point. Okay, so you've got this tension that's been simmering for years, right? But then in 2025, a much bigger political fight comes along and just pours gasoline all over the fire, turning this long-running problem into a full-blown crisis. The second Trump administration kicked off a major trade war, not really about trash, but about bigger issues like border security. In early 2025, they used this super powerful law called EPA to slap tariffs on Canadian goods. A year later, the Supreme Court actually struck those down. But did the administration back down? Nope. Just 4 days later, they used a totally different law, Section 122 of the Trade Act, to hit Canada with new tariffs. The message was crystal clear. This economic wall is not coming down. And this table really shows you the strategic pivot they made. The excuse for the tariffs changed completely. It went from a national emergency to a trade deficit. The tariff rate dropped from a whopping 25% down to 10%, but the pressure was still on. It showed that it didn't matter which legal tool they used. The goal was to squeeze Canada economically. And every single industry, including this massive waste trade, was suddenly caught in the crossfire. So, if you're Ontario, your main escape valve for all your garbage is suddenly threatened. You're looking at huge tariffs, maybe even a full border closure. You're facing a genuine crisis. You have to do something, and you have to do it fast.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford didn't talk about this as just another landfill issue. No, he framed it as an issue of economic survival. He went public and directly connected the need for a huge new dump at home with the threat of President Trump's shutting down the border. He basically turned a local garbage problem into a matter of provincial security.
And the government's answer was something called Bill 5. Now, this was a really controversial law. Why? Because its main goal was to fast-track a massive new landfill site. And to do that, it took the pretty drastic step of just exempting the project from a full environmental assessment. To the government, this wasn't about cutting corners. It was a defense mechanism, a way to make sure Ontario wouldn't be held hostage by what was happening south of the border. So why the big rush? Why such a dramatic move? Well, it's because the province was staring down a very real, very hard deadline. They were literally running out of places to put their trash. This slide shows you exactly what was at stake. It's what experts started calling the capacity cliff. See, as long as Ontario could keep shipping its trash to Michigan, its own landfills would last until about 2037. But if that border slammed shut, the clock speeds up fast. All of Ontario's landfill space would be completely full by 2034. That's a 3-year difference. A provincial garbage catastrophe would be just a few years away. When you're staring over the edge of a cliff like that, the old way of doing things just isn't an option anymore. This crisis didn't just expose how vulnerable the system was, it created this powerful, unavoidable reason to completely rethink everything. So what does that rethinking look like? Well, enter this really cool idea called the Digital Refinery. A company in Ontario called 905 Wood is pioneering this. They focus on one massive stream of waste, wood from construction sites. And they use some seriously smart tech, like Google's Vertex AI, to manage the logistics, predicting where the waste will be and figuring out the best way to collect it. So instead of that wood getting trucked to a landfill, it's tracked, sorted, and refined into something valuable, like biomass for energy. They even have this clever financial setup called decoupled billing, which basically makes it more profitable for everyone to recycle the wood than to dump it. And the best part? The whole system completely bypasses the border delays, the tariffs, and all the political games. It's a fantastic example of the circular economy in action, turning a huge problem into a local resource.
So it all kind of boils down to this, doesn't it? For decades, the easy flow of goods across the border has also meant an easy flow of garbage. But when that gets threatened, it shows you just how fragile that system is. It forces us to look at the real cost of all our waste. And maybe, just maybe, it pushes us to build something smarter, something more resilient, right here at home. What do you think?